Hey guys, welcome to a somewhat impromptu video. I'm just trying to do a really quick recent readings video. One of my most popular videos, considering the last one had no views on it until I watched it again just to see which books I had talked about. That's not a complaint. I don't think I title those videos correctly to actually get attention to them. But anyway, enough about that. In that last video, I had just begun to start reading The Wizard and Glass. It's book number 4 in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. And this book was amazing. I was not expecting this book to affect me the way that it did. I had known going into it, and I may have mentioned in that last video, but I knew going into it that at some point in the Dark Tower series there was a book that took place mostly in Roland's past, as he related a story to his quartet, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, about something in his past, and he told the story about him and his friends and this girl that he met, because he was like 14 at the time and she was 16, and they weren't even barely like official gunslingers, and their parents sent them out to this community basically as a punishment for having gone astray somewhat, but in a way they were also being sent there as like a job, maybe say a test, but also to keep them as far away from the incoming war that was sure to happen. But they ended up stumbling across quite a not like a conspiracy, I guess kind of like a conspiracy. They ended up finding out that they were kind of like going right into the area where as he was called, the good man, was getting resources and sending some of his most trusted affiliates there. And anyway, it spends a lot of time not really progressing the story of the journey towards the Dark Tower, but telling this story from Roland's past. And I thought I was going to be completely turned off by that, but I really enjoyed it. So far, it's my favorite book of the series, and I have to say that the Dark Tower series as a whole is inching ever so closer to becoming my favorite Stephen King story behind The Stand, which is my favorite book of his. I don't think one book will surpass The Stand, but as an entire storyline, the Dark Tower series is getting very close. So I finished that up a couple weeks back, and I didn't have book number 5, so I ordered it online, and while I was waiting for it to arrive, I started on this book, which is called Blockade Billy. Hang on just a second here. All right. Be prepared, they say, and I wasn't really. Stephen King is a baseball fan. I think he's even written a book about the Boston Red Sox. He wrote a story or a book called The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, who was a baseball player. And he wrote this with a story called Blockade Billy, which is a very interesting story, but in the end it was not kind of the grab I was expecting from it. I love Stephen King, I love baseball. I thought, wow, this is going to be really interesting. He's written a story about baseball. It had a very interesting story, but the problem with the story was it was very realistic. And one of the things that I love about Stephen King is that he writes stuff that's not really realistic. It touches on, it even infringes upon reality, but it usually has something otherworldly, supernatural kind of thing. The story in this could happen and has happened, in real life. I don't want to spoil things for you if you haven't read this, so, skip past this part or click off the video. But it's basically identity assumption. A guy who was a really good baseball player, but kind of not necessarily the smartest guy in the world, but blessed with baseball abilities, but didn't have the resources and the connections that this friend of his did, who was going to get a shot to go play in the minor leagues and maybe have a major league career someday. So the other guy kills that guy, and I think like his entire family, like his parents, and assumes his identity and goes on into the minor leagues, and then eventually becomes a big league player and has a pretty good season before it all comes crumbling down because they figured out who he was. But but there was nothing really mysterious about it. I mean, that sounded like something that could have been on CSI. So that let me down a little bit. Now this book, or at least this version of the book, once you get through the Blockade Billy story, then you come to a story called Morality. And Morality, once again, spoilers, so if you don't want to hear about this, Morality is a story that kind of sort of reminds me of something like Indecent Proposal, where a guy who has some money, although he's a preacher or a priest or a reverend or something like that, who's getting on in age, and he has like an in-home nurse type or a caretaker, and this lady and her husband, who is a substitute teacher slash writer, they don't have a lot of money, and she mentions it once, and he offers to give her money if she'll do something for him that he wasn't able to do in his own life because he desired to live a good, clean, religious Christian life. But he wants to vicariously do something sinful and illegal. So he propositions her, I'll give you money if you'll do this deed, and he chooses for her to, or I think he chose it, or maybe they chose it and he approved it, but she ends up going to a playground and just literally like slugs the crap out of some little kid on a playground and then beats feet out of there and doesn't get caught, but has all these guilty feelings, decides to sever her relationship with this guy after she gets the money from him. And what happens is exactly what I expected to happen. It causes all kinds of weirdness for her and her husband, and they start to get physically abusive with one another, but like in their love life and whatnot. And then eventually it just turns into like it tears their relationship apart, and she leaves him, and I don't know, it was really, really terrible, like what happens to them, but I saw it coming a million miles away. And I love how most of the time with Stephen King and most authors that I read, it's not predictable at all. But the stories in this ended up being predictable. But this got me basically through 2 days of reading on my lunch break, because it's a small book when compared to, like, say, this one. It's short. So I was still waiting for this book to show up. The glare is really bad with this one, but this is Wolves of the Khala, or Khala. It's the 5th book in the Dark Tower series, which I'm super eager to get started on. But it hadn't arrived in the mail yet by the time I got done with this one. So I decided to pick up a book I've owned for years but never touched. And that's Needful Things. Needful Things, this is how far I am in it, almost to the halfway point. This is a really good book. I sold this book short for a lot of years. There's something about the title, the story of it. It's the last Castle Rock story, but I'm not even 100% sure which other books were Castle Rock. Cujo, I think, was one. I don't know what the other ones are, though, for sure. Dead Zone, maybe? I need to look that up and find out, because I'd like to read some more of the books from the Castle Rock story. But I just sold this one short. It's about some guy that runs a little gift-type store, a little knick-knack store in this town. And as I'm reading through it, I realize that he's a pretty sinister dude, and he's basically going to cause ultimate chaos over this little town. But it's really, really good. And it had a movie that whenever I saw the previews for it, just looked really cheesy. But I don't know, maybe the movie would be worth checking out, because so far this has been a really pleasant surprise. So once I finish this, I'll jump into this, and once I have finished this one, I'll come back and do another video and talk about the 2 of these. But I just wanted to do this quick little video while I had some time. I don't know if you heard the thunder just now, but it's been storming. I'm getting ready to go pick up my daughter from her mom's. Just wanted to wait until this weather had clicked through. So it seemed like a good time to sit down and talk about some books again. So thanks a lot for watching. If you check this one out, I really enjoy reading, so I hope that somebody out there eventually will watch these and maybe, maybe they're fellow King fans, or they'll read some King books because of my stuff. I love these books. I love Stephen King's work. I know that the moment I start to run out of new King books to read, which that's not going to happen anytime soon, I could go back and reread any of these books at any time. They're really just that good, in my opinion. So once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.